Good afternoon. My name is Mike Kinney. I'm your podcast host, and welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, sponsored by Safety Culture Strategies. This podcast is committed to providing our viewers with insight regarding tools, techniques, and processes to assist any organization with enhancing their safety culture. In addition, we will routinely have featured guests, including industry leaders, authors, and business owners, offering their perspective on a series of safety culture topics. You can reach us via our Safety Culture Strategies Facebook page and our website, www.scstrat.com, or via an email at mike@scstrat.com. Without any further ado, it is my pleasure and great honor to introduce our today's guest, Mr. Roy Bridges, retired U.S. Air Force Major General. Mr. Bridges is a distinguished graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy with a BS in Engineering Science and an MS in Astronautics from Purdue University. Roy held a variety of leadership positions during his 13-year tenure with Northrop Grumman, and prior to Northrop, Roy was the Center Director for both NASA's Langley Research Center and the Kennedy Space Center. During his Air Force career, key assignments included Commander, Air Force Flight Test Center at Edwards Air Force Base, the Commander at Eastern Space and Missile Center at Patrick's Air Force Base, and Commander of the 412th Test Wing at Edwards Air Force Base. As a pilot, test pilot, and astronaut, he flew 4,460 hours in a variety of aircraft. As a NASA astronaut, he piloted the Space Shuttle Challenger on the 8-day Space Lab 2 mission. And Roy, it is an absolute honor to have you with me. And how you doing this morning, sir?
Great, Mike. Good seeing you again. And
ditto, my friend. And it's, you know, I've been talking leading up to the show. Everybody's buzzing. We've heard some of them from our past colleagues we worked before. Everybody's just excited to have you with us. So we're just going to kind of jump into this a little bit. And these are really fun for someone like Roy Bridges, for all my viewers, because he brings a lot of perspective to this whole safety culture. What does it really mean? So in today's world, what do you view as one critical skill that any leader needs to bring to ensure they can have a positive safety culture?
Well, Mike, I think one of the more important ones, and there are several, as you might imagine, is that the workers need to feel that their boss or their supervisor and other management are curious and eager to hear what they see as the main issues and concerns affecting their job performance and their safety.
So when you say curious, can you kind of expound on that a little bit? Just curious about how they're doing the work or how it could be done better, or all the above?
Well, I think the leaders, and probably the further away from you are being a immediate supervisor, are the ones that I'm primarily talking about. Those are the ones that make things happen to improve things.
Good point.
First of all, they need to really want to know what's going on out there.
Very good.
They're curious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So from your perspective, what options are available for senior management to make sure that those task level employees, the personnel closest to the work, so what options are available for senior management to help them really get engaged?
Well, actually, I have a lot of experience with employee engagement tools and techniques. It started at Northrop Grumman, where we used the so-called Gallup 12-question survey, followed by action planning down and within work groups. I also used that when I was Vice President for Operations for the NATA National Security Site. And what the 12 questions do is they feel out how well the organization are supporting the people. And it's been proven with a lot of research that organizations that score in the highest percentile of workers responding positively to those 12 questions have a better safety record, and of course more employee engagement,
Yes.
have more profitability and better customer satisfaction. And I brought down here this set of questions.
Oh, wow.
So I'll just read off two of them.
Please do.
Uh, the lowest one on the pyramid is I know what is expected of me at work. And the highest one at the peak of the pyramid is this last year I have had opportunities at work to learn and grow.
Wow.
And then it explores various other aspects
Mm-hmm.
of this. And when I implemented this in Nevada National Security Site, over 3 years, we saw a huge increase in participation in the survey.
Okay.
We
Good.
saw significantly more employees who were engaged and more high performing teams. And of course, less employees that were actively disengaged trying to tear down your house. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, essence, so
So
from a
that to me is one of the key things that I learned, and I wish I'd learned it a lot earlier in my career.
so it sounds like addition to the survey, because you and I've shared before, one of my frustrations, some processes out there, you do a survey for survey's sake, and nothing really happens to it, and you really don't have any indication, did it truly make a difference to the organization? There's a ways to get traction. I think what you observed for national security technologies, especially under your leadership, you took those survey results and they got inculcated into the actual company processes. Is that a good way to put it?
Well, it's exactly because what you want is the so-called action planning is really at the
Mm-hmm.
heart of the engagement process, where the supervisors and managers will look at, let's say, where can we get the best payoff in improving this team, and then they work with the workers on how to do that. So right away, you're pulling people in and asking them, how can we make things better for you? Now, the follow-on surveys are simply to really look at the effectiveness of that action planning process. And of course, what you do is you have a group that rolls up all of those areas that need work.
Mm-hmm.
And you take a look at the broader company to do things at upper management level, let's say with me and all of my direct reports. So there's action planning at every level.
Perfect. Excellent. And so, and naturally, the one thing that I've had the pleasure of knowing you, Roy, for many years, and you bring some very valued insight on just the world of safety culture inside NASA. So can you expound, excuse me, can you expound on just some of your practice? And I understand, I think you were also instrumental in being able to stand up a couple of review committees to reduce the potential for significant events inside the shuttle program.
Yeah, well, this will probably go a while, so you
That's,
stop me if I get too long-winded. But
you go ahead, boss.
so I went to NASA as a new astronaut in 1980. I didn't make my flight until 1985 because this was very early in the shuttle program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an opportunity to be hardware in the loop simulator pilots, flying lots of ascents and entries, on orbit work, checking out the software. And I spent quite a bit of time as a Capcom, and then in charge of the astronaut office's flight data file. This is all the checklist,
Mm-hmm.
as well as being you might say the encourager to improve on the software from the astronaut office's point of view, giving them more capability within newer software releases. So I was fairly experienced by the time I was finally assigned to a flight crew. And it turned out the Spacelab 2 mission was the first one to not fly due out of the Cape on a 28.5-degree installation. Our science required us to fly a higher inclination at 49.5 degrees inclination. And so as I studied what we needed to do before the flight, I went to see the head flight director And I said, hey, Flight, I need to go to the simulator, get a couple hours of time to qualify a downrange abort site. And he said, well, why would you do that? And I said, well, if we lose two engines before we get enough velocity to get to orbit on one engine, we would need this downrange abort site to land. And the one that you've qualified for a previous mission won't work. And he said, well, that's an unrealistic failure mode. Get the hell out of my office and quit wasting my time. And an island in the eastern Mediterranean. And I had the hexadecimal code for the computer to enter to cause our flight director to line us up to land on Crete.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, nobody else knew I had this other than, the crew.
Correct.
So anyway, the first time we went down to launch on my wife's birthday, the 12th of July, 1985, well, we got to T-minus 7 seconds. All the engines start coming up and throttling up to full power. At T-minus 2.8 seconds, they all shut down, and we're sitting there next to 500,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen and oxygen, having just had a fire in the hole.
Oops.
So fortunately, the fire went out.
Fortunately.
And we went back to Johnson Space Center for a couple of weeks while they fixed one of the engines. And then we went back down for another launch attempt. And 29th of July, this time we got T-minus 7, all the engines start cranking up in 3, 2, 1, bam! You get off like a rocket.
Literally.
As you might expect. You're going about 100 miles an hour before the tail clears the tower, and of course, in 8.5 minutes, you hope to reach 17,500 miles if all goes well. The first 2 minutes, it's like a rough road as those solid rockets are burning, and then about 2 minutes, they jettison themselves, whoosh, and now the other engines are just real quiet, very smooth. You just feel an increase in pressure on your chest as you build up to 3 G's acceleration. And then the shuttle throttles automatically come back in order to maintain that 3G limit until you get to engine cutoff, or we call it PICO.
Mm-hmm.
So about 5 minutes and 45 seconds after liftoff, we felt a decrease in those G's, and we just lost one of the 3 engines. Had we lost it 30 seconds sooner, we would have been the fastest people to go from Florida to Spain. It would have taken us 37 minutes. Now, fortunately, we saved that safety record for somebody else.
Yes.
Because we did an abort to orbit, which we press on uphill to see if we can get enough velocity in order to stay in orbit. And then we got this strange call, Challenger Houston, limits to inhibit. And that's a switch on the center console that turns off all of your safety monitoring equipment for the remaining 2 engines. So our booster officer had noticed a similar failure mode in one of the 2 remaining engines that caused the one to shut down, which was a over temperature sensor that failed in an over temperature condition. So I'm starting to think I may have to use this hexadecimal code.
Just...
If this other engine fails, we're going to be landing in Crete. And then the flight director will know I disobeyed him.
And the people in Crete will be really surprised.
Right, yeah, particularly in the middle of the night there, okay? So fortunately, we motored on uphill, and when the engine shut off, we saw we had enough velocity to stay. So after we did our 7-day mission, we got a 1-day extension. We landed. I found an opportunity to meet up with Jay Green, this lead flight director, and I relayed this story to him, just one-on-one, not to embarrass anybody. And we both had a big belly laugh out of that.
So he grudgingly decided you made the right decision. Yeah.
He did.
He did. And one of the stories, just to kind of give everybody insight, and Roy, I've had the pleasure of using this, and I give you credit. Can you share back when you were, I think you were in Florida with some of your other crewmates, for lack of a better phrase, and they got to go to Spain, and they were flying some of the shiny go fast aircraft, and you were stuck in Florida having to, I think, operate a trainer. So the new potential pilots coming into the programs, they had to have somebody to train them. So you were, and then that kind of led to you being kind of higher on the pyramid to be selected for an astronaut, as I recall, because you had more flights.
You know,
Stand by. Every once in a while, we'll get a hiccup in our line. He'll come back.
pilot school, and we lost a couple of people due to accidents, and
Yeah.
they graduated me early, and I had to be an F-104 instructor pilot to check out.
Right? Jesus, not sure what it's, We'll see if we can get him back in here. Shall we go to a quick commercial? We'll be right back. We're going to fix our bug. Don't go away. Bridges, we'll be back in the house. Stand by.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
And we're back. And I think Roy's back. It's always a challenge when you're kind of doing stuff a little bit long distance. Hey, there he is.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there, but I
It's
called in again.
it's some of those gremlins, and this is kind of, we're going to touch a little bit around the Gallup, but I have a little slightly different question for you, sir. If an organization, let's say, didn't have the infrastructure, the funding to do a very large Gallup survey strategy, is it possible to be able to measure the impact of management and engagement, or is it just more kind of organic in nature?
Well, actually, it's more indirectly measured,
Okay.
given that if you do have a good set of metrics, then there are leading indicators and lagging indicators. And I'll just say, well, your accident statistics are probably a good example of a lagging indicator.
Yes,
Maybe a good leading indicator might be first aid incidents, where somebody got a very, very minor thing. And the idea is to really look into all those minor issues to uncover what's going on so that you can avoid one of those major issues.
Absolutely correct.
I'll just use that. That's just an example. There are many other of those
Certainly.
metrics that can measure how well that unit is operating and whether or not your actions that you're taking to improve them are effective.
I think perfect example of metric too, it'd be pretty easy. And how much time did a given manager spend in the field talking to his people?
Well,
Crazy.
absolutely, because workers need to feel that you are looking at what they're doing. Because let's face it, that makes them feel important.
Yes.
And it also shows them that you care enough to get the hell out of your office and go out there and see what's going on,
See what's
where
really
the work
going
is
on.
being done.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Well, the old phrase, work as imagined versus as performed. And a lot of times they're different, right? From work planning, if you know the right people involved. And for the viewers, I have had the opportunity to be in the field with Roy when he would speak to some of the craft or some of the people in the health and safety program. And after Roy leaves, it really resonates that in this case, a vice president took time out of his day just to stop by and say, how's it going? I mean, and when that
Yeah.
occasionally gets repeated, and then they start seeing changes off the suggestions they made to you or another member of the management team, all of a sudden people really go, wow, I've got a voice. People are willing to listen to me. So, especially because we get a lot of senior managers viewing this podcast, Roy, and I think that, to me, that's one of the big takeaways. It's getting out of your office, spending time with the people closest to the work.
Absolutely.
So,
And
so
that applies whether you're working in NASA on a rocket, or whether you're doing work, construction work, let's say at the Nevada National Security Site.
exactly,
It really applies across the board.
exactly.
I don't know if you want me to talk about the other big space issue that
Sure.
killed 14 people.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that for us, please?
Okay, so I'm getting ready for my second flight, and it's going to be a difficult one. I won't go into the details of that. We call it the Death Star mission, but in any case, we were having a
Stand by, folks.
to,
Wait, I can hear you.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, just continue on, Betty, please. Thank you.
Okay, so we're having this meeting to decide how to keep from blowing up if the Death Star had a problem in our payload bay when we took a break to watch the Challenger launch in January of 1986, and of course it blew up on the way to orbit, killed 7 of my best friends. Mm-hmm. Well, later on, I'm the KSC Center Director. I'm at the landing field with the administrator of NASA waiting on the Columbia to land. And when they were overdue, and of course the shuttle is never late landing.
Right.
If we've had a bad day, we need to adjourn.
Yep.
And talk about what happened, and brief the families and do all of those other things that you
Yes,
have
sir.
to do when you've had a bad day. So anyway, of course it disintegrated on entry with parts streaming down over East Texas from Dallas all the way over to Louisiana. And after that was over, I get a call to go to Langley Space Aeronautical Research Center to set up the NASA Engineering and Safety Center to try to prevent any future accidents of the shuttle program or otherwise at NASA. And both of the accident boards for Challenger and Columbia had written a whole chapter on NASA's deficient safety culture. And the sad thing is that for Columbia, after many years and many improvements in the shuttle, quite frankly, the safety culture was still deficient in much the same way. And it goes to show you how difficult it is to change culture. So the NASA Engineering and Safety Center was to correct one of the main problems. And these problems are quite complex, and I'm going to keep it simple here today, but I'm going to describe it as saying a root of the problem was that the room at the Johnson Space Center where engineers would go during a mission to work a problem in real time had a motto over the door. And it said, "In God we trust, all others bring data." Well,
Wow.
the shuttle program was always tight on money in those days. And so an engineer that was worried about something and go to his managers, often they would say, "You're just a worrywart, get the hell out of my office, quit wasting my time."
Yeah.
So the NASA Engineering and Safety Center was set up to be somewhat like a Supreme Court of technical issues. An engineer at a center could nominate an issue he had to the NESC, and when we set it up, we gave them a large budget so that they could do deep dives on these issues and find ways to mitigate them or otherwise, stop this from becoming another. back for their 10th anniversary, and it turns out that over that 10-year period, they'd done 500 of these technical deep dives into issues at NASA centers. And they were so effective that NASA's safety program and culture significantly improved over that time. I suspect had we done the NESC after Challenger, we might have prevented Columbia.
Wow. Yeah. But I think it's to your credit and everybody involved in your organizations, you chose to make that commitment to get that type of review committee in place with a goal it's never going to happen again.
Absolutely. And I was really thrilled to go back and celebrate their success because it meant
Absolutely.
so many other programs did not have one of those catastrophic situations.
Very well done, sir. Well, we're getting towards the end. The half hour flies by when I'm talking with you, Roy. So you'd be talking in front of a large group of maybe people coming into the NASA program, or they're going to be working at the test site here in Nevada. When you get done with your speech, if you had 2 or 3 things you want, like takeaways, things you want to make sure they remember, what do you think those might be?
Well, I've actually written them down. Since you're getting short on time, it says managers need to be seen in the field, observing work in progress. So management by walking around is a good technique. Number 2, being curious and a good listener to your employees' issues and concern. And number 3, taking effective action to resolve issues and improve employee engagement are imperative.
Excellent. So in summary, that whole MBWA, management by walking around, getting out of your office, getting to know your people a bit, be curious, right? Just, is this really the best way to do it? Maybe think of a better way. And I really like the comment that you want to have some type of effective resolution. And so when they start seeing these changes, that they're going, hey, I look forward to this management team coming back in my shop again.
Well, as you know, in Nevada, we came up with a so-called 5 pillars program.
Yes, sir.
To correct the problems. And one of those pillars was on communication, effective communication with the workforce, because they need to understand what you're trying to do to improve things and their role in that. And they need to understand this well enough that they can see that their actions are going to make the culture better.
They're truly going to make a difference. We're getting towards the tail end. Have you got any closing thoughts for us, sir?
Well, my only issue is that I wish I had 77 and a half more years to give because I really enjoyed the ride.
Yes, sir. And we can't thank you for your service to the country, your commitment to becoming one of the handful of astronauts that ever had the pleasure of being up on the shuttle. Some of the pictures you have when you're up in Skylab, you can just tell how much fun you're having, and then your willingness to continue your service to be helping everything that's going on in the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and an NNSA. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of Safety Culture Solutions. I want to thank our featured guest, Roy Bridges, once again for being on the show and sharing his very unique insight regarding safety culture from a NASA perspective. I think there's a lot that could be learned. Hence awareness of our podcast. Do us a favor. Hit that subscribe, like, or share buttons, and send us any questions you may have, topic you'd like to see addressed, maybe another featured guest. And they can also be found on the Safety Culture Strategies website, www.scstrat.com. In closing, I wanted to share the following quote from Abraham Lincoln. It's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. Until next time, wishing you all the best with your safety culture journey. Bye-bye for now.